we should be measured by the level of innovation that we're generating, but we should also encourage people to think outside of the box and not be so prescriptive in the way that we operate. Certainly organizations focus on innovation that you can partner with, but I think that we can also take a look at examples of where government, where nonprofits, where all walks of life have been very creative and figure out different ways that we can build that into our day-to-day operating model. Like I said, what works for me is really the 70-20-10 rule, where 70% is focused on core operations, 20% is focused on optimizing those operations, but the last 10% is reserved for innovation.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Engatica's interview series. I'm your host Dingu Sagar, and we are really glad to have you join us today. And today we have Vennard Wright with us. Vennard is the President and Chief Executive Officer at Wave. Welcome. Welcome, Vennard. We are glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Dingu.
Okay. So before we get started, a little bit about Engatica. Engatica interview series is a powerhouse of insights from industry experts and influencers from around the world. A platform that provides the latest news on AI, automation, technologies that will help you grow your business. So come on, be part of our community to learn, share, and grow together. So let's dive into the interview. So Vennard, my first question is, so many organizations have been moving their decision-making frameworks to be more data-driven after realizing the potential of it. What are your thoughts on data-driven decision-making in the context of driving business decisions? And do you think this data-driven model shifting towards a AI-driven model in the near future, where specialized AI systems can automate some of these simple decision-making processes and humans deal with the complicated decisions in an organization? So just love to hear your thoughts on this.
Absolutely. That's a great question, and I appreciate it. So what I'll do is give a real world use case. So when I was Chief Information Officer for Prince George's County in Maryland, we wanted to make sure that we were leveraging data to make more informed decisions about what was supposed to happen. So what we ended up doing is taking a look at different indicators across the county in order to identify where data could help us to hopefully move those indicators in the right direction. And the reason that was necessary is because Prince George's County at the time did not enjoy the best reputation. So there were a number of different things that were lending themselves to those indicators. Things like violent crime, Section 8 housing, foreclosures, and a number of other things as well. So what we ended up doing is creating a data warehouse where we could take a look at the different themes and collect data sets that were associated with those themes. And as a result, we ended up moving those indicators in the right direction over time. So that's just an example of where data can help you to make more informed decisions. And there are numerous other examples of other cases where data has helped us make more informed decisions. But to that point, data really can help to make more informed insights into what an organization can do to hopefully do a better job. And as we start to proliferate in terms of the amount of data that's being gathered from an organization or from real world settings, it's going to be next to impossible for a human to be able to go in and make sense of that data. So we talked about what can happen in an environmental setting, but as we get more IoT devices and they're generating more data, as we get more applications that are being installed at an enterprise level, that's generating data. And the only way we can really drill down and see where there are some associations that need to be made is through artificial intelligence. So when you talk about the billions of different IoT devices that are going to be on the internet, in short order, that's going to be a great example of where AI can come in and start to make some associations across the board. So I think that, of course, for a lot of organizations, artificial intelligence is very intimidating. But that's where organizations that are taking that on as expertise can be helpful and really start to make associations between artificial intelligence and data analytics.
Right. So yeah, that was really insightful. I also firmly believe that when humans make decisions, we bring in some of the cognitive biases, so which some of these AI automated systems can remove those biases.
That's right.
We should be careful about the AI biases. That is a whole different story. But yeah, as
Absolutely.
we progress much better into technology, this would be quite interesting.
That's right.
Right.
Well,
So,
and to your point, I think that it's important to also make sure there's diversity in the people that are coding the algorithms as well.
exactly.
And that's where some of those biases start off, because you have a really monolithic set of developers who are pulling
Right.
those algorithms together. So, I mean, from the very beginning, you really need to think in a lot of different directions in order to make sure those biases are not introduced.
Right, right. So again, the training data set which these AI models are trained on is again crafted by humans, and then they inherently carry the human biases along with them. So we have to be
That's
very
right.
careful. And right,
Absolutely.
right. So yeah, so coming to my next question, Vennard. So there have been a lot of cool stuffs happening in the technology space recently, like advanced AI systems and blockchain and the whole promise of decentralization. Then on the other hand, we have immersive tech and the metaverses and so on. And some of these are in their nascent stages, although growing at a rapid pace. And interestingly, most of the smart talent wants to get involved in the growth of these technologies in some form
Hmm.
or the other. And what do you think, technology companies should do to make sure they're constantly innovating, but at the same time, not too much distracted from their core product or service? So, what are your thoughts on that?
Great question. I appreciate this one as well. So when I was Chief Information Officer for WSSC Water, which is a water utility in Maryland as well, I wanted to make sure that we were constantly innovating while not disrupting the mission. So the core mission was obviously making sure that we were delivering safe drinking water and treating wastewater as well. But we also wanted to make sure we were constantly moving forward. So as CIO, I always try to make sure that we're focused on the core mission, which tends to be around 60 to 70% of what we do. But then 20% of what we do is really focused on optimizing the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. But that last 10% is saved for new innovative use cases. So what we did is make sure that every year we were doing at least 5 R&D pilots. So where we were going out to explore brand new technologies or completely changing the way that we operated. And I think that's an important model to leverage. So I think we're obligated as organizations to try and reinvent the way that we're doing things or explore new lines of business while still making sure that we're focused on the core underlying mission. So like I said, the majority of what we're going to do is going to be keeping the lights on, delivering on the mission. But that's really where organizations have an opportunity to differentiate and to be a lot more innovative by focusing on that last 10%. And I think it really has to be built into the way that you operate so that you're measured on how many new things you're doing every year.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think ultimately a company's role is to add value to the society in the
That's
product
right.
or service, right? So
That's right.
whatever we do to make that mission, so we have to be constantly learning. Only then there is growth, but as well as the end goal is to make sure that this value is given to the people via these products and services.
That's right. And it tends to deviate based on what the organization is focused on. So the first two examples I gave for Prince George's County, which is a local government, and WSSC Water, which is a water utility, they're more publicly focused. But then there are organizations like Amazon and Google and others who build innovation into the way that they operate. So from that perspective, they can increase that 10% to maybe 20, 30, or even 50% of what they do. But depending on what the organization is, you're somewhat constrained in how much you can do in terms of innovation. But I still think that even public serving organizations are obligated to find creative new ways to do things.
True. Yeah. Cool. Moving on to the next question. So history is filled with examples of successful businesses disrupted by new technologies and upstart companies that deliver value in new ways. So Netflix, Uber, Airbnb, and many other companies have found out ways to unlock new markets and crush the old models. So, like one book which I was referring to, The Innovator's Dilemma by Christensen. So he was mentioning there are two types of innovation, so sustaining and disruptive innovation. So sustaining is all about improving your existing products and services from a constant feedback loop, and whereas disruptive can be risky and it tries to tap into unproven opportunities. So would love to hear your thoughts on disruptive technologies and how companies manage those.
Yeah, so it goes back to the example I gave before, where, I think a lot of what we tend to do and a lot of the way that a lot of organizations view innovation is really by optimizing the way that they're operating on a day-to-day basis, just making slight tweaks and seeing how you can be a little more efficient. But to your point, disruptive innovations really are those that are completely reinventing or reimagining the way that things can happen. So the good thing is companies are being incentivized right now to try and find out disruptive ways to be able to do things. I mean, there's a lot of investment that's coming from the outside to find the next Netflix or Facebook or one of those innovative companies. So there's a lot of money and reasons for people to go and try to find creative ways to do things that have never been done before. So for organizations that really are looking to go into those new spaces, one way that I've found success is to partner with universities. And the reason I partner with universities is young people, as they're coming into the workplace, they'll ask creative questions about why things are done a certain way and find ways to do things that we've never done before. So it's been my opinion that at a certain point, as you progress in your career, you try to follow the rules, and your creativity tends to die off a little bit. But younger people are still very creative, and they're dynamic, and they bring fresh new ideas. So for me, I try to make sure that every summer I do bring in interns that are trying to question the way that we're operating on a day-to-day basis, but also it's their job to push the boundaries a bit and think outside of the box. And that's a way that I've had success in the past by introducing disruptive new technologies.
That's a really good point, because I also feel that fresh minds, when they approach a new problem, they don't have this bias of how things have been done over past years and the regular standard guidelines. They don't know that, and they're coming to a problem fresh. And then if we encourage students to follow first principles and ask questions wherever possible, then we might find new ways of doing something which is different from, and which a regular person who have been doing professionally over a period of time wouldn't have thought of. So yeah, I agree. That is a good point. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. So yeah, so that brings us to my end of my questions. Are there any other sound bits you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I mean, Dingo, this has been a great conversation. What I would like to encourage organizations to do is to not be intimidated by innovation. I think a lot of times we think about people like Elon Musk and Steve Jobs, who are clearly geniuses, but innovation can come from all corners of an organization. So I think that, we should be measured by the level of innovation that we're generating, but we should also encourage people to think outside of the box and not be so prescriptive in the way that we operate. So, certainly organizations focus on innovation that you can partner with, but I think that we can also take a look at examples of where government, where nonprofits, where all walks of life have been very creative, and figure out different ways that we can build that into our day-to-day operating model. Like I said, what works for me is really the 70-20-10 rule, where 70% is focused on core operations, 20% is focused on optimizing those operations, but the last 10% is reserved for innovation. So that certainly works well for me, but I encourage everyone to figure out a model that works well for them as well.
That's a great way to end it. Like, I guess this model is go to system which we can use, even though the percentages can be tweaked based on a personal experimentation, but this is a great way to allocate how much percentage of your time and money you're investing in different aspects of the innovation. That is,
Absolutely.
yeah, right. Thank you so
Thank
much for sharing your insights with us, Vennard. So guys, for more content like this, subscribe to Engatica and tap the bell icon to get access to exclusive content from thought leaders from around the world. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you with a new expert soon. Thank you.
Thank you.